Sometimes, threats from hundreds of miles away can have an impact on the waterways here in Pennsylvania.
Invasive species, zebra mussels, which have been common now in Lake Erie for 15 years. They finally made it into the watershed. And so that would be on our radar, is one that you'd hate to see something come in that destroys what's made it very successful for the other freshwater mussels to do really well.
Asian carp, a group of 4 different species: black carp, bighead carp, silver carp, and grass carp. They were brought into catfish farms, actually in the southern part of the country, to help clean them out. They are really voracious feeders on the bottom level of the food chain. There was flooding in the early 90s, and the fish escaped from the ponds and have been making their way up the Mississippi watershed ever since. They will outcompete other fish for that food at the bottom level of the food chain, the plankton that other fish need to survive. They've been documented along the Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky border, right about where the 3 states come together. Pennsylvania is a Great Lakes state. Lake Erie is a really important recreational fishery for us, as well as a really great ecological treasure. And I actually sit on a body called the Asian Carp Regional Coordinating Committee that's charged with coming up with annual plans of work and projects that are designed to keep the Asian carp from making that leap from the Mississippi River watershed into the Great Lakes watershed. So we're concerned really about the invasion on 2 fronts. There's a study called the Great Lakes Mississippi River Interbasin Study. It shows that interbasin divide between the Mississippi Basin and the Ohio Basin in different pathways where hydrologically the 2 could potentially connect. About 1/3 of all fishing and boating activity is linked to western Pennsylvania, to the Lake Erie and Ohio River watersheds and the counties that are in those watersheds. We sell about 1/3 of our fishing licenses there. Over a third of our boats are registered there. Allegheny County alone, which is where Pittsburgh is #1 for fishing licenses and boat registrations. So the impact to the recreational fishing and boating industry in western Pennsylvania could be devastating if the fish get into the same abundances that they are further downstream. The U.S. Geological Survey is really doing some cutting-edge research on use of things one's called a hydro gun, and it sounds space age, if you will, but these are underwater guns that are mounted on the front of structures that emit high-pressure water and air that could be used to repel certain species. Another thing is something called eDNA, where you can detect the presence of the fish's DNA in the water, even if you haven't found an actual live fish. It's really cutting edge. The Army Corps of Engineers operates a system of locks and dams. They're for navigation, and they create a steady pool of water and a steady stream of water so that commercial barges can work. We're interested to see if we could work with the Army Corps of Engineers, if there's a way that there could be some sorts of deterrence factors built into the structures to slow their spread and minimize the impact. Senator Toomey and Casey were lead co-sponsors on a bill that's been introduced in the U.S. Senate that calls for action on the Ohio River and calls for controlling the populations of Asian carp. On the House side, Representative Kelly is a lead sponsor on a bill, and Congressman Doyle and Kritz have signed on to a companion bill in the House that would call for action on the Ohio River. So I really do see an acknowledgement on the part of members of Congress. This is an issue that has a big impact in Pennsylvania. We've spent a long time cleaning up the waters of western Pennsylvania, waters that had been depleted by abandoned mine drainage for years. Really great watershed management practices that have been implemented. So you've got native populations coming back. You're seeing mussel populations. You're seeing naturally reproducing brook trout in streams that are headwaters to different streams in the Ohio River watershed. So we have a lot to lose ecologically in terms of how natural systems function, and then recreationally we have a lot to lose. We don't want to take a step backward and see the very food chain that sustains smallmouth bass populations be impacted by the Asian carp. Anytime you're dealing with a conservation issue, you need a local sense of ownership before you can make a difference.